Did you know that Adam Worth, nicknamed the Napoleon of Crime, was the inspiration behind Arthur Conan Doyle's character Moriarty in Sherlock Holmes? That's right, the mastermind criminal who constantly challenged the detective genius of Holmes was inspired by a real-life individual. Adam Worth, a man whose cunning and audacity earned him a place in the annals of crime history, was not a work of fiction. He was as real as the crimes he committed, and his exploits were so legendary that they caught the attention of one of the most celebrated authors of the time. His nickname, the Napoleon of Crime, was not just for show, it was a testament to his strategic genius and fearless approach to his nefarious pursuits. Just like Napoleon Bonaparte, he was a leader in his field, albeit a field that was on the wrong side of the law. So, who exactly was this man who inspired such a notorious character? Adam Worth's story begins in Germany, his birthplace, from where his family migrated to the United States in search of a better life. Born into humble beginnings in the mid-19th century, Worth's early life was a testament to the hardships and dreams of countless immigrants of his time. His family, like many others, sought refuge from the economic and political instability that plagued their homeland. They embarked on a perilous journey across the Atlantic, with hopes of prosperity and freedom in the New World. Landing on American soil, they made their home in Massachusetts, a state that promised opportunities aplenty. Young Adam Worth, however, was not content with the mundane life of a laborer. As a teenager, he yearned for adventure and excitement, a thirst that led him to enlist in the Union Army at the tender age of 17. This was during the Civil War, a tumultuous period in American history where brother fought against brother and the nation was torn apart. Worth was a part of this grand narrative, serving in the Union Army with courage and determination. He was not just a soldier, he was a survivor, braving the harsh realities of war and the brutalities of the battlefield. His experiences during this time were instrumental in shaping his resilience and cunning, traits that would later serve him well in his infamous career. However, his stint in the army was short-lived. After a near-death experience, he was reported dead and honorably discharged. But Worth, ever the survivor, emerged from the shadows of presumed death, with a new life awaiting him. He was no longer a soldier. He was now a man with no identity, a blank slate on which he could inscribe his destiny. But this soldier's life was about to take a drastic turn. Adam Worth went from soldier to criminal after he faked his death in the Civil War and started a life of crime in New York. Imagine, if you will, a man of honor, a soldier suddenly disappearing off the face of the earth, only to re-emerge as a mastermind of the underworld. That's exactly what Adam Worth did. After serving in the Union Army during the Civil War, he was wounded in battle and presumed dead. But what the world didn't know was that Worth had faked his own death, a dramatic transition from a soldier's life to a life of crime. Now, in the bustling city of New York, Worth began to dabble in the underworld. He started small with petty thefts and swindles. But he was clever and cunning, always managing to stay one step ahead of the law. And soon, he began to rise in the ranks of the criminal world. Worth was no ordinary thief. He was meticulous, disciplined, and strategic, traits he'd honed during his time as a soldier. His operations were executed with military precision, earning him the moniker of the Napoleon of Crime. He quickly gained a reputation for being a criminal who never resorted to violence. He was a gentleman thief, always polite, always calm, and always in control. He was, in many ways, a paradox, a man who lived by a code of ethics, even as he broke the law. His criminal activities varied. He ran illegal gambling operations, organized heists, and even dabbled in the art of forgery. His network grew and so did his influence. He was crafty, elusive, and incredibly successful. But for Worth, this was just the beginning. Despite his success, Worth was never complacent. He was always planning, always looking for the next big score, and he was always careful to remain unseen, a ghost in the criminal underworld, a phantom that the authorities could never quite catch. But his criminal empire was just beginning to grow. Adam Worth's criminal empire expanded beyond the United States, reaching the streets of London. As we delve deeper into the story of Adam Worth, we find ourselves transported to the foggy streets of Victorian-era London. Leaving behind the familiarity of the United States, Worth ventured across the Atlantic, setting his sights on a new playground ripe for his criminal exploits. In London, Worth didn't merely continue his life of crime, He elevated it to a whole new level. His ambition was nothing short of establishing an international criminal empire, and he had the cunning and audacity to make it a reality. Worth's operations were so extensive that they spanned continents, from Europe to Africa and back to the Americas. His criminal endeavors were numerous and varied, but one particular crime stands out among the rest: the audacious theft of Thomas Gainsborough's masterpiece, the Duchess of Devonshire. In a daring act of theft that shocked the high society of London, Worth stole the famed painting right under their noses. The theft of the Duchess was not just any ordinary heist. Worth had a deep admiration for the painting, so much so that he kept it with him for over 2 decades, hidden away from the world. He was not just a thief, but a connoisseur of art, a lover of beauty, and in his own twisted way, a protector of the masterpiece he had stolen. But what sets Worth apart from other criminals of his time was not merely his audacity or his criminal enterprise, it was his peculiar sense of honor. Despite his life of crime, Worth adhered to a strict code. He was known to have said, "I never robbed a mother," and he ensured that his criminal activities never directly harmed women or children. This odd mix of criminal audacity and a twisted sense of honor is what made Adam Worth the enigma he was. A man of contradictions, a thief with a heart, a criminal with a code. Despite his criminal activities, Worth had a peculiar sense of honor. Adam Worth's criminal reign ended when he was finally apprehended and served time in a Belgian prison. This marked the end of an era, a period characterized by a series of audacious crimes that seemed ripped from the pages of a penny dreadful. But let's rewind a bit. It was the late 19th century and Worth had been on the run for a plethora of crimes, most notably the theft of Thomas Gainsborough's famous portrait, the Duchess of Devonshire. His capture came after a botched diamond heist in Belgium. The man, who had eluded law enforcement for years, was finally caught. It was an end that seemed inevitable, yet so out of character for the man who had always seemed one step ahead. In the cold, stark confines of a Belgian prison, Worth found himself stripped of his power, his influence, his aura of invincibility. He was imprisoned for several years, a time during which the world outside moved on, slowly forgetting the man who had once been dubbed the Napoleon of Crime. Yet, Worth's story didn't end behind bars. After serving his time, he was released. He moved to London, trading his life of high-stakes crime for one of quiet obscurity. He lived out the rest of his days there, a simple man in a city that had once trembled at the mention of his name. He passed away in 1902, the world largely oblivious to the fact that it had lost one of the most notorious criminals of the 19th century. It's a fascinating transition, isn't it, from feared criminal mastermind to forgotten old man. Worth's life was a series of contradictions, a blending of crime and honor, of power and humility. And perhaps that's why we're still talking about him today. Adam Worth's life was a paradox of crime and honor, a tale that continues to fascinate us today. His story, while filled with deceit and felonies, is also a testament to the power of change and redemption. From soldier to criminal mastermind, Adam Worth's life was as complex as it was captivating. Born into modest circumstances, he rose from the ashes of his humble beginnings to become the most notorious criminal of his time. His life, marked by daring heists and cunning deceptions, earned him the moniker, the Napoleon of Crime. His criminal escapades spanned continents, from the underworld of New York to the aristocratic circles of Victorian London. He was a man of many faces, a master of disguise who could blend into any crowd, yet his name sent shivers down the spines of law enforcement across the globe. Worth's influence didn't stop at his death. He became a cultural icon, inspiring characters in literature and film, from Sherlock Holmes' nemesis Professor Moriarty to modern-day crime thrillers. Adam Worth, the Napoleon of Crime, remains a fascinating figure in the annals of crime history, demonstrating that reality can indeed be stranger than fiction.